Picture this. It's the year 1258, and one of the greatest cities on Earth, a true beacon of knowledge and culture, is about to be completely wiped out in just 13 days. This is the story of the Mongol siege of Baghdad, an event so catastrophic it didn't just end a dynasty. It slammed the book shut on an entire golden age of human achievement. You know, some accounts from the time paint a picture that is just devastating. This one image says it all. A loss of life so massive, it was immediately followed by a loss of knowledge so profound that it literally turned the river black with ink. So yeah, let's dive into what happened. To really get why this was such a tragedy, we have to understand what was lost. So let's rewind. Let's take a look at Baghdad before the storm arrived, back when it was, without a doubt, the center of the world. I mean, for 500 years, Baghdad was the thriving heart of the Abbasid Caliphate. We're talking about a global city, maybe 1 million people, which was huge for the time. It had the legendary House of Wisdom, which was this incredible library and think tank that collected all the knowledge of the world. Seriously, this is where Greek philosophers like Aristotle were being translated and studied when Europe had kind of forgotten about them. It was the epicenter for science, for art, for everything. It really was the intellectual capital of the planet. Okay, so you have this shining city of learning. But out on the steppes of the East, a whole different kind of power was rising, one that was about to collide with this world of scholarship in the most violent way you can imagine. And you know, what's so fascinating is just how different these two empires were. I mean, they were polar opposites. On one side, the Abbasids, a settled urban society with a 500-year-old history, built around libraries and scholarship. On the other side, the Mongols, a newly united nomadic force that wasn't defined by buildings, but by a truly unstoppable military machine with world-conquering ambition. It was a collision course, for sure. So in 1251, the great Khan Mongol basically gives his brother Hulagu a mission. He gathers this massive army, we're talking maybe a fifth of the entire Mongol military, and sends him west. The to-do list was pretty clear. Secure Persia, take out the notorious Order of the Assassins, and then get the Caliph in Baghdad to submit. But before the first arrow flew, a different kind of war began, a war of words. And it was this fatal back and forth, this diplomatic blunder, that really sealed the city's fate. After absolutely crushing the assassins, Hulagu sets his sights on Baghdad, and his message to the Caliph, al-Mustasim, was, well, it didn't mince words. The choice was simple: bow down to the Mongols or face total annihilation. So how did the Caliph respond? With just a catastrophic mix of arrogance and, well, total delusion. He basically called Hulagu a young man and bragged that the entire Muslim world would rush to his defense, claiming his city was invincible. He had absolutely no idea what he had just done. With that arrogant reply, diplomacy was over. Hulagu's massive army marched on Baghdad, and the siege began with a speed and ferocity that the city was just completely unprepared for. Let's look at the tail of the tape here, because it really shows you what a mismatch this was. Hulagu had something like 150,000 battle-hardened troops, plus a whole corps of expert Chinese siege engineers. The Caliph? He scraped together maybe 50,000 soldiers who weren't particularly well-trained to defend a city with walls that hadn't been properly maintained. It was a disaster waiting to happen. And the timeline, man, it's just shocking how fast it all went down. The siege starts on January 29th. Just 6 days later, the walls were breached. The fight's basically over. By February 10th, less than 2 weeks after it started, the Caliph walks out and surrenders. The city that stood for half a millennium was broken. But here's the thing, and this is so important. The battle was pretty much lost before it even really began. In a brilliant and ruthless tactical move, Mongol engineers broke the dikes on the canals around the city. This flooded the camp of the Caliph's army, drowning thousands of his best troops or leaving them as easy targets. Baghdad's defenses were crippled in a single move. Now, you'd think a surrender might bring mercy, right? Nope. Not this time. What it unleashed was a week of slaughter and destruction so complete that it's echoed down through history ever since. Historians argue about the exact number of dead. Some say 90,000, some say over 1 million. But even at the low end, we're talking about a level of death that is just hard to even wrap your head around. For 7 straight days, the city was a slaughterhouse. And this wasn't just random chaos, it was systematic. They weren't just killing people, they were trying to erase a civilization. Palaces, hospitals, mosques, all burned. But the most tragic loss of all, the House of Wisdom. All those priceless books, all that accumulated knowledge, completely destroyed, thrown into the river. And what about the Caliph, the man whose arrogance started it all? Hulagu forced him to watch his people being killed and his city destroyed. Then he had him executed. But see, the Mongols had this taboo against spilling royal blood on the ground. So, in a final, horrific act, they wrapped him in a carpet and had horses trample him to death. A brutal end to a 500-year-old dynasty. So, the city is a smoldering ruin. Let's talk about the aftermath, because the shockwaves from this one devastating week in 1258 are, in some ways, still being felt today. You hear this term, the Islamic Golden Age, right? It was this incredible period, from about the 8th to the 13th century, of amazing scientific and cultural progress. Well, the sack of Baghdad, the intellectual heart of that world, is pretty much universally seen as the event that brought that incredible era to a sudden, violent close. So why does a medieval siege still matter? Well, its consequences were just monumental. It completely wiped out the Abbasid Caliphate, a major political power for half a millennium. It shattered the cultural heart of the Islamic world. But bigger than that, the destruction of those libraries. That was a tragic loss for the entire world. So much knowledge was just gone, forever. And that leaves us with a pretty profound and sobering question to think about. What scientific discoveries, what philosophical ideas, what great works of art were lost in the flames and the ink-stained waters of the Tigris? You have to wonder, how different would our world be today if all that knowledge hadn't just vanished? It's a reminder of just how fragile civilization really is.